Many people, like myself, think that the industry would benefit from more originality, more new IPs and new ideas being invested in. Unfortunately though, this is something that's become very difficult for studios to do. In an age where the internet exists and a game's level of success is often defined in its opening weeks, brand is more powerful than ever. For a large-scale project, it's necessary for people to be talking about your game months, even years before it releases, in order to increase awareness and build anticipation. Some games are well equipped for this, others are not. Enter Daemon X Machina. I saw a tweet the other day saying that this game was very forgettable, mostly because of its E3 reveal. And while I understand the sentiment, I don't agree that Nintendo could have done anything to avoid this. I mean, the presentation opened up with it, and its super stylized trailer definitely got a reaction out of people. They even streamed a bunch of gameplay during Nintendo Treehouse. At the end of the day though, the game was still forgettable, and nobody's been talking about it because of what I believe to be the 5 staples of modern video game branding and marketing that Daemon X Machina has no chance of competing in. Titles and characters are extremely powerful, which is why it's no surprise that a lot of studios will oversaturate an IP to death before they make something new. It's why Nintendo could steal the E3 spotlight with the number 4, and it's why studios are so fond of remasters and spin-offs. There are tons of games that significantly less people would give a shit about if it wasn't for the games they're associated with. Sometimes this can work as a negative, but it's easy for us to scoff at the attempt that was Metroid Prime Federation Force when we forget the flop that was codenamed Steam just a year prior. Daemon X Machina is a game that would have heavily benefited from being something like a Xenoblade spin-off, but instead it's a brand new name with an entirely new universe. As more informed gamers find themselves in the midst of internet discussion, studio brand becomes increasingly more important. In today's age, developers can become just as notorious as the games they develop. You look at a studio like Rockstar Games, and you can feel the sheer amount of power tied to that logo. Rockstar could announce a new IP tomorrow, and the hype would almost entirely be carried by that name. All Daemon X Machina has is Nintendo's publishing mark, but otherwise they have to rely on their developers, Marvelous and First Studio. Ever heard of First Studio? That's what I thought. Moving on. When you don't have a name to rely on, genres and/or specific styles can help you out. This is pretty much why we have trends. Apex Legends isn't the new EA game, it's the next Battle Royale game. Oh look, a new racing game. No, you thought wrong, it's the next Dark Souls. Sharing characteristics with other popular franchises means that you can feed off of existing fan bases. Octopath Traveler might be an entirely new IP, but a lot of its selling power comes from the fact that its art style emulates the old pixel art JRPGs of the 90s. Games with fan bases that haven't had any place resembling a home in years. So what does Daemon X Machina have? Practically nothing. The most recent comparison that comes up is Xenoblade Chronicles X, because they both have mechs, but it's not like the two games look or even play remotely the same. The real comparison is made to Armored Core, an old niche series with a small community. But even some Armored Core people are disappointed that it doesn't share as many similarities as it could. So the new kid in town can't even land a spot with those people. All 7 of them. There's just no genre or community that you can comfortably place the game in because it's just so fucking out there. Visually, musically, thematically, and most importantly, gameplay-wise. Some games can brand themselves as the next big thing if they have enough money poured into them. This is why the industry has such an obsession with bigger worlds and realistic graphics. Even they know that those elements don't necessarily make a game more enjoyable, but it plays into our perception of value, our perception of what's bigger and better than the last thing. This is a category that Nintendo is pretty much excluded from altogether given the nature of their consoles. They pretty much rely entirely on the first 2 branding methods I already mentioned, but obviously games like Daemon X Machina can't capitalize on that stuff. And it's not like the game is pushing any technical boundaries, it's just stylized to all hell. Mix any of this stuff with a decent marketing campaign and you're good to go. If a game's strong in 3 or more of these categories, then it's pretty much guaranteed to sell. If it's strong in 2, then it's taking a bit of a risk. If it's only strong in 1, then it's taking a massive risk, depending on how much money is being invested. You only really see this from either indie developers developers, artsy-fartsy studios with room to experiment, or studios with their backs against the wall. But if it's strong in none of these categories, then you're Daemon X Machina. This is not a video complaining that there's not enough people talking about the game, or that there isn't enough people interested in it. This is a video pointing out that this was inevitable. This is why studios don't invest in new ideas. Why would you take that kind of risk when you can just show off a title card, or a remake, or imply that you're the next Dark Souls and get infinitely more attention? Regardless of what the final product turns out to be, you gotta, at the very least, commend the effort. This has passion project written all over it, and the fact that Nintendo was willing to give a new team this much creative freedom is insane. It's not unlike Nintendo to give third-party developers a chance, but this is weird even for them. From what I can gather, Armored Core has never been a series with mass appeal, so choosing to invest in a spiritual successor to an already niche franchise makes zero sense financially, and is one of the riskiest things I have ever seen. That being said, this is probably a result of their previous risk-taking paying off, and it seems like they're willing to throw a little money around. At the end of the day, I just wanted to talk about Daemon X Machina. I played the demo. It's rough, and it has its issues, but I still loved it, and I think it has a ton of potential, so it gets a shout out from me. It's a game deeply rooted in its systems, so there's zero chance it'll be a hit with everybody. But I still feel like this is something people are gonna look back on one day like, hey, remember when Nintendo invested in that weird ass game that sold like shit? Yeah, that was pretty damn cool of them, wasn't it? Alright, if I'm gonna go on here and see if this recorded. If it didn't, oh, we're good. It recorded, I think. Yeah, let's hit the finish button on that. Boom!